based on a very communist principle. Remember what is the main communist principle? You work according to your abilities and get according to your needs. Alright? So that's how the kibbutz movement started, 1905. And that brings us closer to a very important part of history, 1914. And we all know what happened in 1914, 1918, right? What's that? The First World War. The First World War. And this is when the Turks made a wrong decision. What was their wrong decision? They decided to side with the Germans instead than the British. Because they decided to side with the Germans, you know what was the result of World War I? The defeat of Germany. As a result of that was the defeat of Turkey. And the Turkish Empire was taken, friends, we have another 8 minutes and 25 seconds to hang in. All right. So the first, as a result of First World War, Turkey was defeated. Turkey was defeated. But it was not conquered. The entire country of Turkey was not conquered. Today's boundaries of Turkey, that's the boundaries of the defeat of 1918. That's thanks to Aussies. See, that's the Aussies. They were the forefront of the British invasion, and they didn't know the rules. They wouldn't stop. When they go fight, they fight. They fight until they were not stopped. And so they came all the way up north, Damascus, and that's where the present day borders of Turkey has been established. Now, what happened with the rest of Turkey? The rest of Turkey disintegrated into various states. What was really important for the British? For the British, the most important thing was the Suez Canal. Now, why is that? Because that was an artery to India, artery to Australia. This is what the British really badly needed. You see, today, the Brits gave up on the Suez Canal. Now, why? Not because they're stupid or weak. It's not that. Now you can fly. You see, in those days, you couldn't fly. But what did you do? You sailed. And so instead of sailing around Africa, you go straight forward, right? And so it's the trade, it's the military, it's this whole economy is based on that. All right, so that's why the Suez Canal started from 1872. Guess who built it? The French. The French built it. And who owned it? The Turks owned it. But then the ruler of Egypt was in some financial troubles. And then remember Benjamin Disraeli, the British Prime Minister of the Jewish descent, said we'll buy it from you. So he simply bought it. Guess where he took the money from? Guess. Wild guess. The Jews. Who is the wealthiest Jew in the world at this time? The Rothschild. He got the money from the Rothschild, British Rothschild, paid for purchasing the Suez Canal. I told you it's a Jewish conspiracy. The Israeli, the Rothschild, they purchased it. And that's how the Brits had it, and they wanted to have control. And that's why the British and the French signed a special agreement. 1916, we mentioned this, Sykes-Picot Agreement of division of Turkey, of Ottoman Empire. As a result of the division of the Ottoman Empire in 1916, Sykes-Picot Agreement, part of Turkey was maintained by the British, was held by the British, and part by the French. Okay, part by the French. Now, how did the French justify their presence here? What were the French looking here for? How they justified it? Very simple. They said, we would like to continue to protect the Catholic population. And sure thing, they had a number of agreements with Turkey before, starting from the 17th century, that the French will be protectorate, they will protect the Roman Catholics. Remember the Arabs, Roman Catholics here. So the French will be the protectorate of the Catholic Roman Catholics, Arabs here. Okay? But the British did not have Anglican subjects here. There was no Anglicans here. There were other Roman Catholics or Greek Orthodox. All right? So what did the British said? All right, we will protect the Jews for the first time in history. We will protect the Jews. That's a wonderful news. Those news were declared in 1917 in what is known as Balfour Declaration, or letter. Balfour Declaration that actually says that the territory that the British conquered from the Kurds will be will provide for the Jewish people or facilitate the Jewish homeland. Homeland. Okay, is it the good news or bad news? Excellent. It's a good news for the first time. The Jews are actually protected by somebody, because all the time they were hassled around. And now for the first time, somebody said, we'll protect you. Okay. And there were some peace conferences here in 1920 in Paris, and then in Italy, etc. And this is how the British got the mandate, okay, to rule Palestine. Okay. But what they decided to do, and this is interesting, this is typically British. In order to defeat the Turks, they decided to help the Jews. Now, why would they decide to help the Jews? First, there were some Christian elements in the government that saw that the Jews are a necessary element for the Messiah's return. Second was the financial interest, because the British needed money to do what? To fight the war. Right? So those two elements actually persuaded the British government to act towards the Jewish people. Okay? But they also promised help to the Arabs. The local Arab tribe to fight against the Turks. Because remember, the Turks are not Arabs. The Muslims, they're not Arabs. Okay. So they promised the local Arabs an independent state, which they never had. All right? And this is how the country Jordan, some of you were in Jordan. This is how Jordan was born. As a result of the conference in Paris, right, in 1921. A new country called Transjordan was born. Okay. And you have, now we are coming to the maps. All right, you guys have what? Britain and the Jewish national home. Pledges and borders changes, 1917, 1923. You can see how much the Arabs had. But notice, the Jews had nothing. The Jews had nothing. It was still a British colony, a British territory. The Arabs got independent in 1921, but not the Jews. The Jews were still ruled by the British. Okay, and when the British started to rule here in the land of Israel, the local Palestinian people, the local Arab people that lived here, they raised in a revolt. They said Gewalt. In Arabic, it's a different word. They said, no way. We cannot. We do not want to have Jews here. We want to have our own country, but we don't want to have the Jews. We want to have the country for the Arabs. So they started a rebellion against the British authority on the one hand, and the Jewish population on the other hand. And look at the statistics you can see here. 1918, how many Jewish people you have? 60,000. 60,000. And by 1920, there's even more. All right, so the Jewish population is growing. And they started to feel, the Arabs started to feel threatened by the Jews. Okay. And especially they started to feel threatened because the British opened the border for the Jewish immigration. They allowed the Jews to settle here. And sure thing, there's distressed Jews from the post-war, First World War Europe. Some of them moved to the United States, Canada, Australia, but some of them moved to Israel. All right? This favorable to the Jewish people situation continues until 1936. Until 1936, and here you have a different map here, folks. What happened in Europe in mid-30s? What changes? Why the British suddenly started to change the policy from favoritism to the Jews to the favoritism to the Arabs? What happened in Europe in mid-30s?
Hitler came to power.
Hitler came to power. Hitler came to power. And the whole sort of map of Europe changed after World War I. Right? On the one hand, we have the Russian communists that are a big threat to the whole world because the Russians believe in a what they call the perpetual victory of the communist revolution. They believe that in America one day there will be a communist revolution. Do you believe in this? If you don't, I'm with you. I'm glad. So don't go there. Don't go this way. But that's what the Russians do until today. Okay? And then we have, as a reaction to communism and other things, we have fascism. Fascism started in Italy, but then we have Germany, and then we have other countries that are joining them. And as a result, Great Britain finds itself, guess what? Alone in Europe. You have communists, you have fascists, and then you have Western democracy, which is Great Britain. Okay, and in order to get every support they could, they started to please the Arabs because at this time the warfare changed. They realized they need to change the arms from horses to tanks, right? And the horse can eat the hay, but the tanks need what? Oil. They need oil. And where is oil? In the Middle East. That's where oil. And so they started the policy of pleasing the Arabs, and that's why you have those maps here, folks, of various British committees that are trying to please the Arabs and trying to persuade them to the certain agreement. You can see the Peel Commission of 1937, and then you have a British plan for partition in 1938. Okay. But then we have this tragic development of the events. 1939, Great Britain and France opened the war against Germany. Unsuccessfully. France was defeated, as you probably know, very quickly. And our danger, the danger here to the Jewish community here in the defeat of France is the Golan Heights. Remember where we were, the Golan Heights? They became pro-Nazi because this French territory became a Nazi territory. All right? So that's a direct threat. That's a direct threat to us, the direct threat to England, Great Britain, and that's a direct threat to the Jewish community. By the way, Arabs in 1936, a big rebellion, again, a big revolt here that lasted for 3 years until 1939, until the British actually went into the war with Germany, and then they crushed the Arab revolt here. And then World War II, and for us, the tragedy of World War II is the Holocaust, as you can imagine. Holocaust is the tragedy of World War II, and can you imagine? Think about it, right? 6 million Jewish people perished, and Great Britain, that still owns this land, right? The land, the territory of Palestine, did not open the gate to save the Jewish people. Can you imagine how many hundreds and thousands of Jewish lives could be saved? The British just opened the door to British Palestine. They didn't. Even after the end of World War II, Great Britain, guess what? Did not want to open the door to those survivors, those who survived all this. They're not that many, right? And still, they are not allowed to come to British Palestine. And that causes instability here, and the Jewish rebellion against the British Authority. As a result of that, the Great Britain decided to give up on Palestine. Give up on Palestine. And remember, they received a mandate at the Paris Peace Conference here, right, from the United Nations, which was called League of Nations for those days, right? And now the British government decided to give back the mandate back to the League of Nations, back to the United Nations, right? And the United Nations decided to divide British Palestine between the Arab and the Jewish state. And that's what we have here. The United Nations Partition Plan, 1947. 1947. This is how the United Nations decided to divide the land here. And as a result, so that's an important date, right? Let's write it down. 1947, 29th November. And remember, we mentioned who was a great supporter of
Stalin.
Joseph Stalin. Why? Not because he loved the Jews, but because he did not like the British. Whatever is bad for the British was good for the communists, so he decided to support the division plan, right? Because it was anti-British, something that was anti-British. And so he supported the idea of the Jewish state. However, what happened as a result of this decision? Two things happened as a result of this decision. The civil war within here, in this colony. What's the civil war? The war of the Arabs against the Jews. All right, that's one thing. And the second thing is the war against the British administration. Both Arabs and the Jews were fighting against the British administration. Okay? And the British, as a result of this massive unrest, civilian unrest, and armed unrest, could not handle the situation. They just could not handle the situation. Remember that by this time the government in Great Britain changed. Remember Winston Churchill lost the elections in 1945. As a result of that, we have a liberal government, or Labour government in Great Britain. They lost control of the situation, and they don't want to rule in Palestine anymore. So they said, you know what, guys, if you cannot handle this, it's your problem. We are going to get out. When they said we will get out, 14th of May, 1948. Okay? And sure thing, they moved away. They moved away, and they left the situation on this high fire. Right? When the Jews and the Arabs were fighting with each other. But not only this, not only the Jews and the Arabs, but we have also the Arab countries around us that made a pledge, right? Made a decision to crush the state of Israel and kill all the Jews. Okay? And that's all the neighboring countries around us. Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Libya. Though they're not bordering with us, but they send their troops together with the Arabs plus the local Arabs. Right? So you can imagine that Israel became alone. Right? The United States, though the United States recognized Israel on the 15th of May, they recognized Israel next day. But still, there was no plans whatsoever with the military support of the state of Israel. Why is that? Because of the Russians. You see, the Russians supported the state of Israel, so they saw that if Americans will send the troops, guess what? It's the war against the Russians. And nobody at this time, right after World War II, wanted to open up another major conflict with the Russians. Okay? And so Israel found herself in an extremely difficult situation. All right? However, if you notice, according to this petition plan, see, there are two countries that were supposed to be born. Israel on the one hand, and another country, Palestine. Sure thing. Another country was supposed to be born. And guess what the Israeli leaders said? Ben Gurion said, sure, we are happy with this. This is very little, but we're still happy with this. Guess what the Arab leadership said? No way, no way, no way. There is no plan of division. There is no such a thing. You don't have to work hard even. There's no such a, we will never accept anything. Nothing. 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 And okay, as a result of that, this conflict, that Israel had to find herself fighting alone. Notice, no other country came into rescue of Israel. No foreign soldier was fought here. There were some volunteers, mostly Jewish, that came from the U.S. and England, some from Canada as well, but very, very few. It was all the Jews. Can you imagine? We lost 1% of our population. World War II in America, not even close to that. 1% of the population. That was our losses there. About 6,000 people. We will probably stop here because it's already 10 past 9. We can go till midnight, but yeah, I can see you got a full minute. But this is this. And you know the result of the War of Independence. The result of the War of Independence was that the state of Israel survived and even enlarged its territory. Remember we mentioned Galilee. If you look at the maps, you can see that Galilee was given to the Arabs. But now the Jews conquered it. Places like Tiberias, places like Beit Shan was Arab town. Tiberias was Arab town. Safed was Arab town. Nazareth was Arab town. Haifa was Arab town. All that was conquered. All right, all that was conquered. Plus the coastal line and the Negev, the southern part, and the Negev. That's good. But what happened to the Palestinian state, friends? Guess what?